Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Restore Her podcast. I am your host, Cheryl Lacey Donovan, and we are excited about having you here with us on today. We're even more excited about the great things that are going to be happening really soon. We have an awesome summer summit, Summer Empowerment Summit, scheduled for you guys coming up June 7th through 13th. 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time nightly. And we're hoping that you will be joining us for that because we have gathered some of the best presenters, best speakers, best coaches that I think are out there right now. And they have graciously decided that they are going to participate with us in our event for this summer. This is the second one that the Restore Her movement has hosted over the year, and we're just really glad about it. Just a little bit of background information about Restore Her. The Restore Her movement is something that we actually started probably about 2 years ago or so, and we really started to solidify it beginning in January of 2019. Actually, I would say it was even further than that because we had been doing retreats on a regular basis, on a yearly basis with some women, bringing women together to just kind of relax, to revive their souls, to do some soul work, if you will, some inner work necessary to help them to move forward in their lives and get to the destination that they were trying to get to. And so we've been doing that for quite some time. And around 2018 or so, when we were at number, maybe probably was the fourth or fifth year of having the retreat, it was just in my spirit that we needed to really bring some cohesiveness to this and engage with more than just the women that had been participating in the past. And that's when the Lord dropped into my spirit, Restore Her. And her stands for healing, enlightenment, and renewal. And that's what we're trying to do with the Restore Her movement. Heal women, enlighten, enrich, and encourage women, and help them to become renewed. And there are 7 principles that we stand on with regards to that. Restore her identity, restore her spirit and soul, restore her emotions, restore her health, restore her relationships, restore her wealth, and restore her identity. So each of the individuals that will be speaking with you over the course of the week will talk about one of those principles of restoration, and it has just been truly an awesome thing to work with them on this particular event. So without any further ado, I want to introduce you to Lyvonne Copeland. Lyvonne, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So before we get started or go any further, I want to give you an opportunity to let everyone know who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. I am Lyvonne Copeland, and I am a self-reliant strategist. I am a certified spiritual life coach, and what I like to do is reach those women that are in that transition phase of their life, those mid to late 30s to 40s that are at that place where they're understanding, I've sat down too long. I've waited on the sidelines too long. I've been quiet too long. It is time for me to reconnect with that woman I forgot that mattered and help her to reclaim her voice, reclaim her passion, and to fuel her purpose.
But you saying that, I recognize that we have quite a bit in common because those are some of the women that I like to work with as well. And when talking to them and doing your coaching sessions with them, what is the biggest challenge that you see that these women face?
They're trying to take on the world. They're trying to maneuver through life, handling everybody's problems. We're a super mom. We're the super daughter. We just want to be super for everybody. We're taking on everyone's problems and forgot about ourselves. So they're at that place where it's like, how do I reconnect with that woman I have put on the back burner for so long?
Yes, and that's that hits the nail on the head. That's why with the Restore Her movement, that's one of the things that we talk about a lot, and that is learning how to care for self. We spend a lot of time and many, many, many years caring for everybody else and putting ourselves on the back burner. We are very infrequently intentional about caring for ourselves and doing things for ourselves when, in fact, that's one of the most important things that we could do for everybody else. Because if we get to a place where we're burnt out and we are tired and we have nothing else to pour out of us, we're pouring from an empty vessel. And, if you think about, orange juice or anything like that, at the bottom of an empty vessel is nothing but sediment. So are we even really giving them the best of ourselves because we haven't been taking care of ourselves?
Exactly. I mean, I love that analogy. That is so head on, like you said, hit the head on the nail, because it is at that point, are we truly, we think we're, I'm giving all, I'm sharing the best parts of me, but are we really? We're really just serving leftovers, and you think about leftovers, it's something that has already been sitting out, is lost, a lot of times it lost the flavor that it really had, you've lost the, it's cold, and if you've ever studied food and know anything about food, that when it begins, and once it sits for so long, it really begins to break down. And what you're going to end up with at that point, that food begins to mold or become smelly, and you're thinking, well, I want to eat that. But that's what we're doing. We're serving people those parts of us that really isn't all that pretty.
Absolutely, and I think that if women will begin to start seeing it that way, that maybe they'll understand that self-care really is not selfish. Because again, that is, we have to replenish ourselves. We have to refuel and renew ourselves in order, like you said, to give away the best that we have. Because without that, it just is not. It's not what we think it is. I think we have fooled ourselves and deluded ourselves into believing that we are doing the very best we can and serving in the very best way that we can and showing up the best way that we can in the world. But I think that, again, that it's I tell people all the time, don't be a fraud in your own life. And I think that that's what we have caused ourselves to become, because we just want to believe that we can do all things, and we never need any downtime. We never need any quiet time. Even when we're talking about trying to replenish our soul and spirit.
Yes. You said something that just it excites me, and that is that word selfish, because one of the things that I love, and it's part of my brand, is that I am selfish, because I actually have a Facebook community that is that is the hashtag I am selfish. I created that movement because it is so important to understand that self-care really is not selfish. It is really you taking ownership of who you are. One of the principles that I teach is that we have to learn to create space for ourselves in our lives. And that is not a selfish thing to do, because when you can make yourself a priority, you are better able to then fuel other people. You're better able to love. You're better able to pour out. But selfish has always gotten a bad rep. We hear people think, I don't want to be selfish. We hear people say someone is selfish, and we automatically think it's a bad thing. But what happens if we realign our thoughts, we rearrange the way we think about that word selfish, and understand that when I can be the best me, I can be better to you.
And that is awesome. I love the way that you said that. When I take care of myself, I can be a better me. I can be the best me. And even the Bible, although people rarely want to go back to it and call it what it is, but this is what it says: love your neighbor as yourself. So that would indicate to me that there must be some type of self-love necessary in order for me to even love my neighbor in the first place. And I would submit to people that when we see a lot of these things going on in the world that seem to stem from hate and things like that, I think some of that also may stem from a lack of self-love. Because if I wouldn't kill me, if I wouldn't harm me, if I wouldn't put myself down or be condescending to me, then it's going to be difficult for me to do that to you. So I just believe that in this season, this is a time and an opportunity for all of us to get to a place where we recognize that it's okay. And I'm not talking about being conceited. I'm not talking about, the kind of love that will cause you, which is really in my mind not love at all, but will cause you to be mean to other people or condescending to others. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the kind of love that says, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, and because of that, I'm going to make sure that I, even God rested, so I'm going to make sure that I rest and that I do the things that I need to do to be the best self that I can be for everybody else. And that is just I pray that women will get that.
I love it. I love it because that is I think that's what fuels me, and that's my passion. I share in my story is that for me to get to that place, I want to keep other women from having to go through or get to that place where I was when I realized how important, like you said, to love, how important it was to love me, because I ended up, in the hospital. They're trying to determine if I was having a stroke or a heart attack. And you got people running around, they're hooking you up, they're testing you, they're drawing blood, it's a lot going on. And then by the time everything settled down in that night and I sit there and my room is quiet and all I can hear, is that heart monitor and hear that line and that beeping. And then to hear God say, you've been at that place where you have allowed everybody to use you. You've let them pull from you and drain you, that it's now my time. And what he began to show me was that I had to start making myself a priority. I had to set boundaries and limits. I had to find my voice and start speaking up for myself because, as you said, I had to realize that I was created in his image. I was created to be wonderfully and fearfully made, and that I had a purpose that the world needs, but it couldn't even get what I had to offer because I wasn't even nurturing that. And it takes us to get to this place to understand that loving ourselves, like you said, if we could love ourselves the way that we should love ourselves and God loves us, it would be so hard to hate on our sisters and brothers.
These sisters in the spirit, because my experience was very much the same. Finding myself sitting in an office, I thought I had everything going on, everything was together, and all of a sudden I started, feeling this pain, and my arm was kind of hurting, and I recognized I kind of was clammy, and I'm in the medical field. I was actually in an office I am responsible for medical students. And one of the doctors came in and said, you know what, you don't really look very good. And I'm like, I'm sitting here thinking to myself at 35 years old, I know that this cannot possibly be what I'm thinking that this feels like it is. And same thing, going to the hospital and all the monitors and the echocardiograms, and grateful that it was not a heart attack. They ended up saying it was an anxiety-type situation, but the doctors very plainly said, but if you don't start doing some things, and if you don't start paying attention to yourself and paying attention to your body and what it's trying to tell you, you will be back in here with a heart attack.
Wow.
So one of the principles that we speak about with Restore Her is the principle of restore her soul or restore her spirit. And I know that that's something that you speak on a lot. So tell us a little bit about how you plan to approach that for your presentation this coming week.
Looking at restoring our soul, I think that's the foundation of even being able to restore her, because we have to get back to that place where we have that intimate connection with God. One of the keys that we will discuss is intimacy, because a lot of times we think of intimacy when we're just sex, pretty much. It's all that we think when we think of intimacy. But see, when we could understand the level of intimacy, even in the physical, if we can begin to rethink how that is in the spiritual, being able to connect with God, and that is that deepest place where no one gets to see, even the ugliest of the ugliest part of us, those thoughts that only we have, those talks that we only have with ourselves and God, because that's the only place that we can fully sometimes be naked before him. So we have to get to that place where we understand that intimate level of relationship that we have to have with God, that allows us to have that intimate relationship and conversation with ourselves, that allows us to be able to restore the physical. It begins in that spiritual, deep in our soul, where we can begin to rethink the way and recalibrate our thoughts, begin to think differently and begin to speak differently to ourselves. It is where we begin the restoration. So I'm looking forward to sharing with the audience the conversation, how what that conversation looks like. how it's going to sound, and what it's going to feel like, because it's a scary place. You know, intimacy, we've always thought about, most of the time think of it relating to sex, but when you know that intimacy begins long before the encounter. And
Absolutely.
So we have to see that with our soul, yes, that it's going to start long before the encounter. So the encounter that we have with ourselves and with the world, we have to start first with our soul.
So listen, Lyvonne, thank you so much for being a participant in our second summit of the year, our Summer Empowerment Summit, and talking to the ladies about restoring their souls and their spirits. I think that it is a huge undertaking, and I hopefully we'll be able to transform some lives and change some mindsets with regard to what it looks like to love yourself and to take care of yourself.
Yes, absolutely. I am super excited and anxious and waiting.
Absolutely. So let everybody know how they can connect with you if they'd like to have you to come out and speak, or even to be one of your clients.
Absolutely. I love that it's easy to connect with me because my name, Lyvonne Copeland, is my social media handles across all platforms. I am currently on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. So across all social media platforms, it is Lyvonne Copeland. My website is www.lyvonnecopeland.com. You can actually go on there to connect with me, whether you want to book me as a speaker or connect and see how I can help you as a coach. So feel free to connect with me across all media outlets.
Well, everybody, we are speaking with Lyvonne Copeland. She is one of the awesome presenters that we will have for our second summit of the year for the Restore Her movement, happening June 7th through 13th, 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we will be talking about restoring her identity, restoring her emotions, restoring her soul and her spirit, restoring her health, her wealth, restoring her relationships, all of the things that are important for us if we want to see the manifestations of God's blessings and promises in our lives. We hope that you will join us for our summit, and we thank you so much for joining us here this evening. You can reach out to us at the RestoreHERmovement.org, or you can go to my website, CherylSpeaks.org, and find out more. We're also on social media as well. And as always, we want to remind you that God can do exceedingly and abundantly more than you could ever ask or think, according to the power that works in you. Be blessed.